Hello and welcome to today's webinar where we will talk about the new features of Oracle PLM, On-Prem 936 and Cloud R13, and we'll also discuss whether you should upgrade to Agile 936 or go directly to Cloud PLM. My name is Megan Day and I'm your moderator for today's webinar. Before we go ahead and get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. So today's session is currently being recorded and you're in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the session, please go ahead and type them into the questions tab. We will answer your questions at the end of the presentation. For those of you who already don't know today's speaker, Tom Nelson's involvement with Agile PLM and Cloud dates to an early release of both of these products. He has decades of experience in all aspects of manufacturing and service industries. Thank you all for joining us today, and I'll go ahead and hand things over to Tom.
Thanks, Megan. Hello, everyone. So, should you upgrade to Agile 936 or go directly to the Cloud PLM? That's the question we're going to talk about today. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to talk about a little bit about GoSaaS. Some of you may or may not have heard about it. We're working for GoSaaS now. GoSaaS is essentially kind of a spin-off and a renaming of specialty people and specialty products that are 100% focused on the US Oracle PLM solution. So Xaver still exists, for those of you that know Xaver. Xaver's still around. They're doing the common global delivery for GoSaaS and other practice areas like Microsoft and Salesforce. So we've just done a little branding and set things up so we can focus, this particular group can focus on the cloud. Okay, so
Tom,
that's
sorry, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. We can't see your screen.
Oh, sorry. How's that?
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, sorry everybody. So anyway, just a little explanation of what GoSaaS is and the players involved and everything. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about Agile upgrades, so upgrading to the latest release, 936. So we'll talk a little about the user interface, admin, a little about PC, and then I'll show you some live demonstrations with PPM. So this presentation is going to be a collection of slides, and then we're going to go into the live environment, so you'll get to see a little bit of both. So we're going to talk about, should you upgrade to Agile 936? Should you migrate to the cloud? So we're going to talk about the PLM Cloud Release 13. It's a true end-to-end PLM, and then we'll get into what PD and PDH mean. Then we'll talk about a hybrid. This is an interesting one that some people are electing to do. So sometimes it makes sense to keep A9 on-prem and actually integrate it with PDH, Product Data Hub, in the cloud. PDH gives you a lot of possibilities. It also allows you to link into the true item master for other things, and it brings other applications in, like innovation management and various things that you can hook into it. So you can have your current A9, whether you upgrade it or not, and you can integrate it into the cloud and get a lot of benefits. And then finally, we'll talk about a wait-and-see approach. It may not be the right time for you to either upgrade Agile or move to the cloud, and we'll give you pros and cons for both of those. So some things to think about. Okay, so upgrading to Agile PLM 936. So we're going to come in, we're just going to do a quick demo. I'm actually going to concentrate mostly on the PPM because that's the biggest changes, I think. There are some other changes, basic changes to reports. The admin has got some new functionality. The user interface is pretty close to what it's been. There's just a few little tweaks here and there. And then the admin, like I say, has got new functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and get into that bit of it. So here's Agile. Here's the new upgrade. Let me expand this a little bit so it's a little easier to read, I think. Okay, so in this case, I'm just in the basic system. I've opened up one of the projects. You can see that all the drawers over here are basically the same. You still got folders, reports, and navigator. Some of the reports have been improved, a little bit more functionality. Okay, the create new works the same, the upgrade, so it's very nice to do the upgrade, because if people are already using Agile, they're already familiar with the tool, and it's not going to shock them when they're introduced to the new system. There are some new functions, so I'm going to go ahead and come in here and open up the Gantt chart. So here I can see the basic Gantt chart for that upgrade customer number 6. Okay, it's got all the details in it, the usual bells and whistles. One of the new things that's pretty neat is if I come in and click this little button here, I can open this up, and I can now open multiple projects at the same time. So I can see here that the one that's highlighted is the one I've got open. I want to look at these others. I want to see them in the same view, compare things, and now I can actually check resources against projects or across projects. I can check schedules. I can do all of that. So they essentially come into one view, but it's all interactive. So if I go ahead and say, okay, these are the things I'm looking at, I'm going to apply, and then get this window out of the way. So now I can see in here I've got this customer 6, customer 7, customer 8, all that information's available. And if I redo this, I can see how all the projects stack up. So now when I come in and do things like look at resources and things, I can actually pull the resource loading from all 3 projects, or however many projects I've opened up to compare. I can actually see, in this case, I've got all these dependencies. I can go ahead and link projects to projects, so all the attribution, everything follows over automatically. When I get done, I can save these, and I can either save them as one final project, or I can save them out as their individuals still. So a lot of new things, a lot of capabilities, especially within PPM. Okay, so those are the biggest changes, I think. Like I say, there's a lot of smaller changes. We're not going to go through all those at this point, but we can follow up and answer any questions about that you want to see. Okay, some of the other things they've done is they've done some modifications under the covers, improved security a little bit, made things run a little faster when you're doing things, and remove some of the mouse clicks that may have been there before. So if I come in and, for instance, I look at the quality systems, I still have all the CAPAs, non-conformances, problem reports, things like that. But to actually navigate around and get into like the affected items and things, the system appears to run quite a bit faster than it did before. The searches seem to have been improved and execute a lot better. Okay, so the big reasons to go to 936 if you're on like 935, 934, Lots of improvements to the PPM module, other improvements that people may or may not even notice in the user interface, but they do help speed things up. The real key here is you don't have to come in and relearn the tool. People that are using it will all continue to be able to use it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slides here real quick. Okay, so some of the pros and cons for upgrading to 936. So as I mentioned, some of the pros, there's minimal user training required. If they're using one of the earlier versions, unless you go back to 9.1 or something like that, they're going to know how to use the system. There's going to be minimal training required. There's going to be less internal convincing on going to the cloud, essentially. You've got minimal learning changes as Agile, admin, or other IT resources, so you're not changing their world, just like you're not changing the business users. Here's a wonderful one. No need to renegotiate with Oracle on licenses because you're already there, you're set up. There's a low perceived risk. Many customers that have done the upgrade, it's stable. It's working. There's a lot of references for it. So all good news on that. Okay, on the con side, depending on what version you're at and if you're coming up to the latest, if you're coming up to 936, you may need to upgrade your infrastructure depending on the version you're on. So, you know, purchase of new hardware. This is always a question with on-prem services. You may need new hardware, new servers. You may have wasted cost and effort to do the upgrade to a version that doesn't have an exciting future. It doesn't mean it's going away. It doesn't mean it's not going to be supported. It just means there's not going to be a lot of new stuff that comes out in the product over time. They're going to continue to support it. Oracle's promised that Agile support's not going away, but there's going to be mainly bug fixes moving into the future. So you're likely not going to see any new modules, any new big functionality coming out of it. Another big one that's interesting, new hires, especially the millennials, may feel that the company uses an antiquated system. If they come in and start looking at Agile, you know, it's not the most modern interface. It's interesting, the people we talk to, that a lot of the new people come in and they have certain expectations. And if they're viewing your company as antiquated, if you will, that might be a concern for them and might help them make the decision whether they want to join the company or not. Another big one is you may possibly lose the opportunities to get some pretty great discounts from Oracle. As they may be going away in future years. You know, right now, Oracle is literally bending over backwards, helping people move from on-prem to the cloud. So they're willing to generally work out some great deals. You just have to be nice to your Oracle support people. Okay, so generic pros and cons. Some of these you may figure out for yourself. Typically, the first couple up here make sense, but people don't often think about new hires coming in and seeing older systems and how that can affect them. It's a reality these days. Okay, so the next possibility is migrate everything to the cloud, move away from on-prem and come into the full cloud systems. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the shortcomings of the traditional PLM, which is Agile on-prem. So you've got the PLM focus. This middle one is your current PLM system. So you can manage the new product development, the processes, develop the product record, and everything that goes along with that. What you get when you start moving into the cloud is you get ways to capture all the information that you need ahead of the true PLM focus, what has been the PLM focus. So you can capture new ideas from all kinds of different sources. You can actually put your requirements documents together in here, requirements and concepts. You can put business proposals and start getting into the numbers of everything. It's not just about the design, it's what about the future? How are we going to sell this? When are we going to be profitable on this? And then you can look at your portfolio. So what are all the possible things that are going to be going on in the company? And you can set that up either now by projects, or you can look at it over time. So what do I expect? What's my 3-year vision or my 5-year vision? And start looking at the total enterprise view of this for now and out into the future. So lots of things you can do in here. And you can use any one or any combination of these tools that are out here. So you don't have to worry about idea management, but you may want to capture requirements. And requirements can go a long way. So requirements are your actual documented set of requirements. As you're doing your development and testing, you can go back to the requirements and check them off and make sure that you've met all the requirements for a given release. So you've got a way to tie that right into the product record now. Most people are doing something like that, but they typically do it in other systems. The cloud allows you to tie it all together, all in one place. Okay, and then the PLM focus, this is your typical. So you can improve your development cycle time by tying some of this other information in there. Everybody, again, is working from a golden master, but now you've got more information included in the golden master. You can increase the productivity, reduce the ECO errors, and by doing that, again, reduce the cycle time. So again, everything's in one place, more information for proper decision makings in one place. You can reduce your scrap and rework, increase design reuse. You know, so the typical things that you think of when you're thinking PLM, whether it's on-prem or going to the cloud. It's still core, it's still critical for all your deployments. So these are the same things that you're doing in your on-prem. What we're doing is providing more data to make more informed and better decisions. The next part of it is you can tie in the commercialization part. So not only are you doing the development, but you, as you're inputting data here, you're going into the product we'll demonstrate for you in a bit, called PDH, Product Data Hub. And basically that's your full item master. It is the database for the cloud applications. So as you're developing your bills of materials, you can have, for instance, your supply chain starting to get pricing. Putting in the manufacturing attributes, you know, starting to do all those things instead of taking the output from PLM and kind of throwing it over to the fence to the operations and manufacturing people. Now they're part of the entire process. You don't have to wait until you're done, because all the information is in one database and it's shared between all the departments. So they can come in and start looking at the information as appropriate. You're still going to go through official change processes and things like that to release everything. But again, all the information's in one place, so you're not going to pull data out of here and push it someplace else. It's just a nice, easy, automatic flow through. Okay, so this is a nice Oracle slide. The idea is to show you you've got everything in the cloud from ideation to commercialization. So we can capture ideas, get the concepts, decide on the projects, begin the development in PLM. So this first set is the innovation management group of functions. The next set is your typical PLM, so documentation, document structures. You've got quality management in the system. And then you get your manufacturing and supply chain. You've got options. You can control your inventory. So it's interesting. Your inventory can be in the system, and when engineering is back here making design changes or new development, they have access and they can immediately see what might be available in inventory. so that it might help them pick out parts and move forward. Okay, and you can do sales catalogs and commercialization. I'm going to show you an example of that in a little bit. So as we go across the little chevrons here, you've got innovate, develop, and commercialize. Those are the three big points to the system. And it allows you to do all of these in the same system at the same time. Still have different people touching the data, but the data is all in one place now. Okay. So some of the cloud usability advantages. Okay. First of all, you've got a modern user interface. This is one of the things we talked about with just upgrading Agile 9. The cloud has got a nice new fresh interface. Lots of colors, pretty, there's sliders and clicks. So these are kind of the things that the millennials especially are looking for. You're bringing forth what you believe is a modern company, modernized company. So not only do you have nice landing pages, but you've got a lot of data at your fingertips. So you can see the data in a lot of different ways without doing a whole lot of work to get it there. And all of this is configurable, so each person can see their own views. They can control what they're going to see, so dashboards, landing pages, a lot of analytics we'll talk about in a minute. You've got an embedded socialization tool. So if you kind of think about it, it's almost like Facebook or Twitter built into the system. You can have just running communications going on with people. You don't have to leave the system and go to an email. You can do it all within the system. And if you're having conversations about a specific item, product, bill of materials, all of this information is tied right to that particular item in the system. So again, if you're doing collaboration, you don't have to leave the system, and you can be talking, and this is live, you can be talking back and forth with somebody on the other side of the world without picking up the phone. Capture all the information, and now it's part of the product record. Another great thing is real-time dashboards and analytics. For those of you using Agile, if you're using OPLA, the basic OPLA, the BI functionality is built into the tool. It's all talking to the same database. So a couple really great things about that. You don't need to buy another tool to get into all these dashboards and analytics. The really great thing is there's no data mart that goes along with this. So all of the analytics you want to do are real time. You don't have to wait for the database in the background to get updated. Maybe typically for OPLA, it gets updated maybe once every 24 hours. In this case, you can do analytics on the data, hit a button, and it'll go out and grab the real-time data and refresh the reports that you're looking at. Again, the advantage of being in the cloud, everybody's talking to that PDH product, the central hub of the data. So there's no reason to have to cache information and do other data transforms. You just do it all right within the system, and you do it real time. You can do the cross-discipline multitasking. So you can have multiple resources, of course, in the system, all touching the same items at the same time. Each one of them can be doing something different. So you might have cost managers and updating their information, while you've got quality assurance, design engineering, and maybe sales and marketing all can be in the system at the same time, updating their information. And now you have truly a one source of the golden information. So that that makes it easier as people are moving forward. Plus, if you're going to start doing analytics, you want to get the total story, so you can get in and see everything. And then finally, the system is very extensible. So you can create custom objects, which you can't do in Agile. So you can create your own objects and start from scratch. You've got a full set of very powerful relationships. You can literally relate pretty much anything in the database to anything else. So in Agile, you can do relationships of like parts to another part, or a bill of materials, or even a quality system. Within the cloud, you can go from a part to the MRP, to the ERP, back to the human resources information. you can link just about anything you can see to something else. Your business processes get better because now you're managing end-to-end processes rather than just the PLM processes. So although, again, if you remember that curve I showed you, all the way from getting an idea in, making decisions about which ideas to accept, which ones to reject, all the way through the development, which you do in the PLM, and then into the commercialization, where you're actually going to build the product, you're going to ship it, you're going to take sales orders. All of that's in one place. And then you can do a lot of business logic setup. So for instance, just basic things like entering data, you can set business rules and do validations as the data is entered. Agile doesn't have that capability. You can input data all over the place, but it doesn't have business rules that can necessarily get applied to that. Well, in this system, in the cloud system, you can validate all the data that you input. So you reduce errors. Again, that comes back to reducing the cycle times, reducing or eliminating errors, all of that, because it's now part of the system as you move forward. So here's an example of some of the real-time analytics. And in this case, we're actually looking at analytics, we're looking at change order summaries, but not only are we looking at the overhead and the throughput times, but we can actually start bringing costs into this. What is the cost of a change? How do I know? Well, because I'm capturing all that information in the system. So it's not only what are the effects on inventory, how much inventory is available, what's the cost of the change, and what are the ramifications downstream? How's it going to affect the customers? What's the marketing story that goes along with it? So all of that data is available there, and it's just a matter of deciding how you want to view it. The analytics are there, the analytic tools are there, ready for you to go. Okay. In the system, we can design and develop new products, of course. This is your typical PLM. So you can do item management. Some of the cool things you can do now is, if you're used to Agile, you've got your base class, your class, and your subclass. So you've got items, then you've got parts and documents, and then you've got the different subclasses of the system. In the cloud, you're not limited to those 3 levels. You can go as many levels deep as you want. So you can have subclasses of subclasses of subclasses. Sometimes that becomes very handy, especially if you're trying to control a lot of different attributes and doing different things, capturing different information. So the idea of a title block or a page 1, page 2, page 3 kind of goes away now, because you're not really limited to that. You have all the capabilities that you used to have, but you don't have any of the limitations that go along with it. So you can do a lot more attribution, a lot more control of the attribution, both by just selecting the proper subclass or through the roles and privileges. Who gets to see what? You've got a lot of controls over the visibility of things. You can still control your BOMs, your AMLs. You've still got the full change management, so change orders, change requests, things like that. And then you've got a lot of ways to grade items. This is something new in the cloud that people have been asking for in Agile for a long time. They just never got it into the system. But you can actually grade items. So you can say, okay, these particular items don't have an AML. Well, how do you go to production without a source for what you're doing? You may have things like on the AML, well, we've got three parts on the BOM that are single sourced. Our business rules say we're not allowed to do that. Or you've got AML items, manufacturers that have not been qualified and they have not been released, so you can't move them into production until you get that done. So you've got a lot of ways to do analytics on that kind of stuff without having to go in and do it manually like you had to do it with the other systems. That data just automatically is available for you on a lot of the screens that I'm going to show you here shortly. Okay, so now we're going to go in and see R13 on the cloud. So here's the basic view. Let me get rid of the overhead stuff here. Okay, so here's the basic view. So it comes up, tells you who you are, in case you had forgotten. Gives you a lot of oversight, like employee news. This is kind of like an internal newspaper, if you will. So you can spread information out, give a lot of information about what's going on. You can set up flags to informations if you've got conversations going on, like I was talking about earlier. You can say how many different strings that you're currently part of. Are you following, and do you have followers? So if you've created your own, again, it works kind of similar to Facebook. You can have followers, you can create your own strings, have people join, or you can join other strings that are out there. Then you have a whole set of these icons, and these are basically the icons that tell you what you're allowed to do in the system. Can be controlled with roles and privileges, or it might be dependent on the modules that you've actually purchased. So again, if you don't have to purchase things like innovation management if you're doing product lifecycle management. You can just do the PLM. You don't have to have the ERP if you're doing PLM, and you can decide what modules you need to bring into the system. So I'm going to first go into the product management here. And these are all kind of the focuses within that. So under product management, I can see up here I've got, this is my ideation concepts portfolios that we talked about. I can look at configurator models. We'll talk about EG&C here in just a minute. And then I can do things like specialized document management. So if I'm working with the outside world, how do I want, say, suppliers to be able to get the information we're looking at? So I can come in here just with a click of a button and get things set up. But for right now, we're going to go into product development. Okay, here I am. This is the current release. This is R12 of product development. And I'm bringing this up just because I want to show you some of the improvements that have been made to the interface as we're going through. So I'm just going to open up an item here. So you'll see completely different layout of the pages. I've got these info tiles up at the top. So what is my work list? What are the things I'm supposed to be working on and what's overdue? I've got changes that I've created. I've got one that I've approved, and it'll tell me right away if I've got any that are pending approval. My structures. Structures is what they now call bills of materials. And part of that is because, the term BOM comes from the old CAD days when you were creating literally a bill of materials, a parts list. But as we all know, a BOM these days is far more than just the parts list, because you might have mechanical CAD, electric CAD, software, firmware, all your documentation. All that is part of the bill of materials, but that doesn't come from the CAD systems. So they appropriately renamed the BOM tab. It is now called structures. Independent of whether it's a part or a document or anything else, it's just everything that's required to manufacture this product. It all goes on the same place on the same tab. Okay, so I can take it even further. I can look at my structures, but I can also see immediately, do I have any that are released? So I've got 7 unreleased and I've only got 1 released. Well, that's telling me that I need to get on board and start doing some more work. I've got 7 unreleased structures that I need to get out. I can also come over here and get a quick view of different kinds of changes. So for instance, I've got an engineering change order. It's still green. I've only got 1 in there. It's still green because it hasn't taken too much time. I have 2 CAPAs that I put into the system, and they're both red, which means they're way past the limit that I set up. Okay, same with an audit here. I've got 1 audit, but it's past due. So just with a quick look, and this is right out of the box, by the way, so you don't have to go in and create this. You don't have to run searches. You don't do anything. It just automatically pulls up the information for you. So they've made it, you know, a much nicer interface, plus they're making it much easier to use. You don't have to do so many mouse clicks. The information, a lot of it just is there. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, so I've got some structures down here. I'm going to go ahead and open up this guy. So this is just a part or something with a structure. So I can see here, the first thing you'll notice is I've got more info tiles across the top. I don't have tabs across the top anymore. They've changed it so you can get more information in the viewable area. What they've done is they put the tabs over here. So for instance, I'm looking at the general information tab. I can go to the attachments. I've now got a team tab, so I can assign people to be part of this object, like responsibilities, who's allowed to see it, who's not allowed to see it. I can do my item grading. We'll show you this in a couple slides. And then I've got relationships. So if I want to see, in this case, if I want to see the structure, I'm going to come up and just click on this little arrow here. It's going to pull the information out of the database for me. Okay, I'm going to minimize this window just by hitting the collapse button. And then down here I can begin to see my bill of materials. So it's multi-level bill of materials, just like you had in the other tools in Agile. I can click and expand levels. I can go many levels deep. I've got different icons for assemblies than individual components. So I've got basically parts and documents again. And I can continue to go down and down and down. So I can go very deep into this. There's no find number anymore. They've replaced it by sequence, because this is probably what 90% of the people were using the find number field for, is just sequencing and showing what order you wanted things in. So they renamed it and called it something more logical. It all works out. As I scroll over, I can have more and more attributes. And again, this is configurable. You see things like the revisions, quantities, unit of measures, life cycles, effectivity dates. I've got some other cool new things in here. So I can do things like, under additional information, I can come in and configure this. So I click on a button and it brings up a whole set of attributes. And I get to define the attributes that come up in these little windows. In this case, I'm defining things for regulatory. I don't have any regulatory information in here, but you can see the group of attributes that came up just by hitting a single mouse button. And like I say, this is configurable, so you can put, you know, if it makes sense to put cost information, inventory on hand information, purchase order information, all that can now become part of the BOM display. And again, you can control this with roles and privileges, so you know you only get the right people seeing the information. But they've greatly simplified how you get to that information in here. Okay, so that's the basic structure. If I come back to details, I'm going to do something like teams, structure. How about going to my AML? So if I want to see the AML information for this, click on the AML, and one of the great things you get now is I see the AML for that item, but it actually brings up the entire bill of material. And just by going down and clicking on different items, like I click on this wire, it'll bring up the AML for that particular item. So no longer do I have to go back and forth opening up items, going to their manufacturer's tab to see things. It's all there in one view. The other great thing is that people have been asking for this for years. If I go to the Where Used tab, so I'm looking at one of the items, I now have Where Used not just to the next level up, but the entire structure of where everything goes. So I go all the way down to my wire, in this case, and it'll show me all the items that are part of the bill of material in that line that show everything. And then, of course, I've got multiple places where that particular, in this case, wire is used. So now I don't have to run any special queries and searches and things. I can see the entire structure here in one place. Okay, so this is just kind of touching the highlights of the entire thing. There's, of course, a lot more things that are going on. So let me come back to the presentation here, and we'll talk about some of those real quick. So that's the high level of PD, product development. That's, you know, the PLM in the cloud. And like I say, there's a lot more possibilities. So as I come through here, so the next step is, how do I do a hybrid approach? How can I keep the core PC and A9 and add the functionality of the cloud? Well, so what you can do if you're going to do the hybrid approach, as I was talking about earlier, you can bring innovation management in. You can bring in the product data hub, which gives you the availability of the enterprise information rather than just the design information. You can bring in the governance compliance. We've got a governance compliance module that works with PDH. All your quality process in the cloud. You've got everything that PQM will do, and then you've got more. And then cloud PPM. So you've got PPM in the cloud that can tie right into your products, your deliverables, everything you need to get done there. Okay. So what I'm looking at here is just showing a slide. So we've got everything in this green shaded area has to do with the innovation management. And you don't have to incorporate all of these. You do what makes sense. You can bring in any or all. This captures the information before you get into the Agile PC. So you can be doing this part of it in the cloud so everybody can see it. Push, when you make the decisions, you can push that information, the projects and the development record, into Agile PC. And then if you want, when you're done with the development, you can push it back up into the cloud for all your commercialization parts. Okay, I'm going to speed up a little here. Product Data Hub is, like I was saying, is the centralized database that all the cloud works through. So the great thing is, once you put the data in there, the data is available to all the other parts of the applications. So you don't have to move things from one system to another. It's all right there. And like I showed you and demonstrated a little bit, the analytics and doing pulling up part information, doing dashboards and searches and things is great, because now you've got the total picture. Okay, so some of the key use, or the Product Hub key use cases. Item management, again, the rich product definition. So you've got ops, regulatory, marketing, sales, everybody's involved in here. The data quality is enhanced because you can apply all kinds of validation business rules. You've got your governance, and you can do full change control. Your consolidation, we talked about that, pulling everything into one place. Now you're talking about the entire product value chain, product supply chain. And you've got omni-channel commerce capabilities. So you can have vendor data and onboarding, things like that in the system. You can have product definitions for different channels or geographies. And then you can publish from here to the web to do your e-commerce. I'll show you a cool slide for that. So you can do catalogs basically in the system and just directly push them to your web. Okay, so here's a scenario. So been using Agile for many years, running into the scalability issues due to the initial configuration. You've made change, you've done mergers and acquisitions, you've changed your ERP, you've got regulatory requirements, new requests, and you're trying to integrate it to multiple systems. So, you know, what you may have started 10 years ago, 15 years ago is just, it doesn't necessarily scale without doing some re-engineering. So a lot of the questions that get asked, what goes to the ERP and what has to be done manually? Can I automate things, or do I have to move them out and move them in? What belongs in PLM versus ERP versus other system? Well, a lot of this question goes away because it's one database and the different applications just come to the same database and work on the data as they need to. So that goes away. What gets loaded when you do an M&A? What integrations do you have? You can minimize the integrations by using the tool. Who are the users of the information? So you can control that. What are they doing in Agile? It may be that you've put a lot of things in Agile that really don't belong there. They should be in another system. It's just the other system is more difficult to use, so people are coming into Agile all the time. You have multiple sites, branches. How are the products sold? You know, online distribution, direct. Is your CRM tied in, and is your quality system tied in? All of those things can be answered by deploying the product hub. Whether you go for the full PLM route or not, the product hub helps you answer all of these questions. Okay. Given the time we've got, I'm going to skip this customer example. If people have got questions, we can come into it, but I want to make sure we cover everything we want to cover here. Here's the example of what I was telling you from the product hub. We've input all our bills of materials. We've got all the different variations on the product. I can actually bring up the catalog here, and over here I can search and sort on what I want displayed. But I can bring up a catalog view, show the various items, and I can take this information, push it directly out to the web. So here's my internal catalog. I get it the way I want. Click a few buttons, it goes out to the web, and now customers can come to your website and see your catalog of things. This all starts from PLM and moves into the commercialization. So another advantage of having it all in one place. Okay. Here's another example. We've got a product called eGNC. It's different from PGNC. This is environmental governance and compliance, so it's focused just on that. So you can actually set up A9 on-prem and have eGNC in the cloud. The reason you can do that is now all your compliance information can be pushed forward into your MRP and ERP systems directly from the essentially directly from A9. So you can have your bill of materials, get your product developed in A9, push the information over to the cloud into PDH, gather your compliance information, maybe do some transforms on it, and then automatically have all that information available to other systems like your ERP and your MRP. So like it says here, you can have Agile PC and other modules on-prem, but then you can come and work with all the benefits of the cloud. Some of the benefits, it's simpler pricing to use to enable wider use. So when you're doing eGNC in the cloud, you don't have to have a license for every person that's going to touch the information. So that the licensing is different, and you might be surprised at the savings you can see. And then, like we said, it's a much better user interface. It's more modern. We do have a supplier portal, so there's portals already available for the suppliers to log in and fill in their information. So you don't have to provide licenses for them to come directly into the application. You can still do that. Sometimes it makes sense, but it's not a requirement for doing some of these things. So you've got a lot more flexibility. Okay. So here's an example. Here's what a specification looks like for Rojas. Nice and simple, tells you the jurisdictions, tells you all the substances, what kind of validation types are allowed. So there's a lot more controls you can put on it, but it's got a much simpler interface than PGNC, for instance, in Agile's got. Okay, so here's another picture looking at the finished goods. So this is how the information gets reported back. So this is what the supplier would see. This is the supplier portal. And again, trying to minimize the number of mouse clicks and make it very simple for them to get in, put their information in, and then finally resubmit it back. Then we've got the quality management cloud. So again, as I said earlier, it'll do basically everything that PQM does, but you've got some new things in here like inspection results. So now the system, again, since it's part of the cloud, is looking at all the application. So I can actually do inspections, gather the data, control the inspections, everything right from the cloud application. I can still do all my quality issues, so I can still do CAPAs, NCMRs, all those kinds of things. But now all of this is available across the board. It's not just looking at PD, it's looking at orders, order entries, again, incoming inspection. You can even tie it back to your projects, project plans and things like that. You've also got some great things available out of the box. You've got mobile. Everything you're doing in the cloud can be set up and run from mobile devices. You've got all the built-in dashboards and analytics, plus you've got the whole BI, and you've got your social experience. So now through this, coming down and look at the chevrons: define, identify, analyze, and correct, all within the same system. And here's one of the dashboards, so you can start seeing, for the quality issues. I can see by severity, activities. Looking at my receiving inspection, I can get an immediate view. WIP inspections, the different types of inspections. So this is just one of the views just particular to inspections, but you can get views like this for every one of the other steps in that entire curve. Okay, I can tie my socialization into the quality aspects. So if I need to collaborate on a corrective action, for instance, I create the car, I've got my attributes down here, I've got a workflow, and I can be discussing what's got to go on with the other people that are involved. And again, this all becomes part of the product record. Okay, we've got Cloud PPM. Full PPM capabilities, nice and simple. You've got a lot more capability for resource management than you used to, and now you've got a lot of capabilities for the project financials, a lot more than you had available in Agile. So there's many more things you can do, and the financial people can be part of this. So here's a typical Gantt chart. You can see all the same layouts, same structures, very easy to add new lines. I've got the communications that can be tied right in here, so I can be collaborating on this. So the whole idea is to make it easier to use, plus you don't have to go into meetings, you don't have to pick up the phone, you don't have to write emails. You just start talking back and forth, and you can be any place in the world. You don't have slowdowns now. Okay, you can control your resources. So you've got a lot of information on your resources. So probably more information than you want to know a lot of times, but the capabilities are there to control just about everything. Okay, and then finally we can get into the wait and do nothing. If the migration from A9 to the cloud doesn't make sense, there might be internal priorities, regulatory reasons, or must-have functionality, or it might make sense to wait and do nothing unless there's specific functionality in 936 that's critical. So the benefits of waiting can be you might save dollars by potentially going directly to the cloud at a later time rather than spending money to do an upgrade on A9. This allows you to allocate your resources to other projects. And you can do things like, work on the new employee training management, concentrate on that, or other solutions that will work both with on-prem and cloud. So you can start deploying those things knowing that at some point you're going to go to the cloud. Start getting it into Agile, work out the details, get your business processes set up, and then it's much simpler to get into the cloud. Okay, so there may be reasons why it doesn't make sense to do an upgrade, whether you're ready for the cloud now or not. So that's basically it on the presentation. I know it's taking a while, but a lot of information to cover. So Megan, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, definitely. So thank you, Tom. We have a few minutes left, so I'd like to go ahead and address some of the questions that have already come through. And also wanted to mention that we will go ahead and answer any questions via email that we haven't had a chance to get into with the time that we have left. So I'll go ahead and get started with the first one. Linda asks, will the upgrade to 9.3.6 address Java issues that are currently occurring with 9.3.1? Issues like opening the Java client, opening documents, Windows 10, etc.
Yes, tremendous improvements using Java between 9.3.1 and 9.3.6. You should probably eliminate, I'm guessing, all the problems that you're probably seeing today. Those all should go away. Great.
Another question that came through. Did 9.3.6 improve when it comes to PG&C? We're using 9.3.3 now.
Not really, not any real significant changes to the PG&C. It was more about the PPM security and some of the user interface things.
All right. Todd asked, where is the cloud system hosted that you demonstrated today? And is it hosted in the Oracle Cloud or is it on-premise?
My A9 was on-premise. The cloud that I'm doing is in the Oracle Cloud, and the actual physical location I couldn't tell you. They've got several places, and part of the reason you go to the cloud is so that you don't have to worry about those kinds of things. Oracle takes care of it for you, including all the backups and redundancy and all the things that go along with it.
Great. Is there a demo system for cloud that we can have access to try things out?
That would be a good question for the Oracle people. I know the capabilities there, but you would have to talk to your Oracle person to see what kind of details you might be able to work out.
Great. Will process extensions be supported with Oracle Cloud? Based on what I'm seeing, it appears that the Java client will be going away.
Yes, the great thing is there is no longer a Java client. The admin functions are built right into the cloud, so you don't have to go to a separate client. Process extensions, there's several ways to do that. The EG&C module I told you about is built in paths. So the cloud environment has actually several ways to do customizations now. Just depends on the extent and what you're trying to do, and do you want them to be available to other people, or is it just for you internally? But you've got I wouldn't say infinitely, but you've got a lot more possibilities in the cloud for creating customizations than you had with Agile.
All right, great. Thanks for submitting the questions, everyone, and if we didn't get a chance to answer those that you submitted, we will be reaching out to you with an answer shortly. And if you have any additional questions or comments regarding what you saw today, please don't hesitate to contact us. Our information is right there on the slide. And you will be receiving an event survey in your inbox soon. Please fill it out so we can not only keep in touch, but after you have completed it, we'll send you a copy of today's slide deck and recording. And this concludes our webinar for today. Thank you all again for attending, and have a great one.